it all starts with you, right? Like you're a magnet. And so what level, where are you vibrating? And so how do we pour into ourselves? What are you modeling, right? Where are you at and what are you modeling? Who are you learning from? And are you making sure to stay connected?
What you're building isn't just a brand, it's the work and story God trusted you to carry. Welcome to Heard in Heaven. I'm Ray Ireland, best-selling author, global speaker, and co-founder of Evolve Podcasting, where our clients have reached over 3 million downloads. This show is where Holy Spirit revelation meets CEO execution, so your message doesn't just inspire, it multiplies. It's time to speak with fire, shake the earth, and be heard in heaven. Have you ever wondered what is going to be the thing that takes you to the next level? We're going to dive into that today with this episode with Cathy Christen. She's the creator of Scale Advantage, a culture operating system. She's also an executive coach and the co-founder of GoBundance Women. She's going to be breaking down one of the most important keys to activating new levels of your leadership. This is community, all the pieces around how to gather community, high level community, the ways to really value it and to get the most out of being in those spaces together. I think more than ever in this world of a lot of online connections, we're craving that deepening. So let's dive in and hear what Cathy has to say about this. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Heard in Heaven. We are here with Cathy Christen today. She is an executive coach and also co-founder of GoBundance Women. And there's so many things that this woman is doing. She's on fire, powerhouse woman. I asked her, what are you launching? And it was a list of things. And I got to say, like, that's my type of people. And I know that if you're listening to this, you get into that experience of energy and excitement when you hear about what's happening too. Because let's be honest, sometimes we're in the list, we're in the things that are all happening, and we're in the things that aren't meeting the deadlines, and then the kids and all the craziness while trying to keep our head and heart aligned with Jesus. And so we get the craziness. And so she's going to come in here. We got to meet at an incredible mastermind. I think it was almost a year ago. Crazy to think of the time. And you were just such a bright light and also this really grounded leader. And as soon as you shared all the things that you've built and done, your 20 years of leadership, it was like, well, no wonder this makes sense. So we're truly bringing on such an expert here. And Cathy, thank you for being here. Anything else you want to add and share about who you are and what you're up to in the world right now?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. First of all, it was so great to connect with you last year and also like to see all the synchronicities and crossover, right? With like friends and people that we knew from whether it was the Cutco world or other things. For me, my journey really started with Cutco. I think rewind, I feel like God put, one of the strengths he gave me and talents was definitely business, right? My dad would always say, you're a little businesswoman since you were little. And I didn't know how that would play out. And I remember going to a Christian college and I was studying accounting and then international business, but I felt this calling of like, man, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing more, right? Like in that realm. And I was like, should I switch from the business school to study biblical studies or something? And I remember I was on a mission trip in Belize, and I went for a long walk with one of my friends, Ben. And during that walk, I was like, I really am trying to figure out what to do in terms of like my purpose and like what I should be following. And I just, I feel like maybe I shouldn't be doing business and I should switch. And so we have this whole conversation, right? And we get back to, I was helping lead worship that night. And I was trying to find the head guy who runs all that, Mike. And so I'm like looking around for Mike, and I go into the offices we were at this boys vocational school, building a well and doing some stuff and teaching them math. And so anyway, I go into the office, and the lady goes, like, she just has a breakdown when we walked in. And this is what happens. I open the door and she goes, oh my gosh, guys, I'm so frustrated right now. Like so many people feel like, to go into the ministry and to serve, they have to like go study like, I don't know, biblical studies or something, or go be a religious major. And they don't realize that we like need real trades in the real world. Like we need engineers and we need this. And she like goes off, and then she goes, and we need accountants. She goes, I'm here trying to balance these books from different donations that have come in, and I'm just so bad at this. She's like, I'm sorry for venting. How can I help you guys? It's like, okay, God. I'm like, I guess I'll stay, in business and continue to pursue. And it was
Yeah,
so wild. My
signs
buddy was like,
loud
"Are
and
you kidding me?"
clear.
And I just I was like, when God talks to me, like he'll talk through people and it's like, boom, like you can't, like, you just know. I'm like, all right. So I stayed the business route.
Yes.
I graduated. I bumped into Cutco along the way, going into my junior year of college. And it was there where I got my first taste of entrepreneurship and learning, personal selling. I was hooked. And I'm like, I love this. Like, I love being able to teach people like what's possible and like really feeling like each and every one of us is a seed of possibilities, right? That God has like put so much into, but that seed, when it's in the wrong environment, is not going to grow, right? And so if I had a seed and I put it on this table and I'm like, Ray, let's just watch it until something happens, right? Like it might rot before it grows into something because it's not in the right environment. And so I got addicted to personal development and really understanding like, okay, my biggest fear in college became not meeting my creator in my end of days and him being like, what did you do with everything I gave you? Right. And like not using my full potential. So poured a lot into Cutco, stayed with them for a long time because I love what they were doing. Then about 5 years into it, about 2007, I started a leadership academy back in '05 because I noticed there was a huge gap between like what people needed in the field once they were done with college and what we were actually taught. Um, and that really just teaches foundations in how to manage yourself, how to manage others, how to manage money, and personal selling. And so I started running that. I started helping people start businesses, scale businesses. And then eventually, probably a decade or so ago, I started helping people remove themselves, so like business owners really being business owners and not just full time operators. And so I became really passionate
Mm.
about that because that changed my world. Like I had hit a wall in 2007. And I'm sorry, I'm like talking so much here, but 2007, I was done. I crushed every record Cutco had. We had broken the record by August. We still had the entire fall. I was miserable. I was burnt out. My relationship with God was awful. I had alienated so many close friends and family members. And I'm like, this can't be success. And I was making big bucks. And I was like, this is nuts. And I was ready to go and go be a missionary in Africa. I was like, I'm just leaving. And my best friend
Yeah.
said, hey, I'm going to a pastoral leadership conference at Willow Creek Church in Texas, and I have an extra ticket. You should come. And that meeting changed my world. And we can talk more about it later if you want. But it was the whole theme of it was like, lead where you are. And it's like every speaker, it was like God was just like, I need you to stay right there, And so what I've really figured out is that for me, my platform in business, whether it's been with Cutco and then with GoBundance and helping other companies launch, has really been a platform to be able to reach more people. And it's been really beautiful. And we're so excited to take it to the next level with some higher programs that we have coming out and a new book that'll be launching here in the next couple of months. So that's 24 years of professional in a 5 minute nugget.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. No, it's so cool. Thank you for sharing. And I really want to just like zone in on that piece around the environment, like being in the right environment. That's what helps you grow. And you're someone who is currently and has been, now we hear your whole story, has been and currently launching multiple things and like big things that are impacting many people. What environment do you ensure and like place yourself in to know like, okay, like I'm going to be able to grow here, I'm going to be able to work? What does that environment look like for you?
Oh, I love that question. It's been an evolving thing because pre kids, there was a lot of freedom to do, to have my routines, to like do all the things. And it was a big challenge at first when I had my first child during COVID. And now I have three beautiful children, 1 year old, 2.5 year old, and a 5 year old. But it's been a little bit nuts. And so before, I think that it was always going to like conferences, personal development conferences, like masterminds, and I took a lot of time for myself with reading. And whether that was reading books to really make sure that I was developing mentally, like I'm a big believer in just developing our energies physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, right? And so it was like, what am I doing for my like growth mentally? What am I doing for my emotional growth and getting stronger with emotional intelligence and just really learning and understanding that what I was doing spiritually. And so for me, that was Bible studies, it was group Bible studies, and just getting time in the morning. Like I used to just block off time for me. And then when I had kids, I'm like, what the heck? How is this supposed to happen? Right. And then it was learning like to adapt. and really look at, at first I think I fought it because I wanted to do it the same way. And the fact is, once you have kids, it's not the same exact way. So you start weaving new ways of doing things and weaving it in, where it was like doing Bible verse memorization with the kids, or going through different affirmations, praying together in the morning and reading a Bible study, but then making sure I got my time. And so switching times of the day. But I think that for me, the environment for me is being around like-minded people who are growth oriented, and that can look like a lot of different ways. I don't go to as many conferences these days because of the kiddos. Although I was taking, when it was one, I took them with me everywhere too, and then I was like, it's a little much to bring three littles everywhere. Although they're amazing, they're high energy and need lots of attention. So for me now, it's been a lot of journaling, my time with God, and having that time. I'm so grateful for our church because they do childcare on Wednesday for 2 hours while I can go to a women's Bible study and not worry about anything, and just like be focused. So that's been beautiful because I was missing that for sure. And then GoBundance, being around high powered, heart centered humans. And you can find it in different places, but I just love our community that are pouring into each other, that are there to open doors, make introductions, sometimes just remind you how amazing you are. And despite what might happen, right? Like we all have things that happen in business and our lives and our relationships that sometimes we're like, what the heck? Why is this happening? And so being able to be around others that remind you this is not your fault, or this is not this, or here's what's next, or what can we learn, right? People that can always find the lessons, versus I think that the environment I was in growing up, if someone was like, oh my gosh, this happened, they're like, oh my God, let me tell you about what happened to me. And there was like this nag fest, versus being in a place where we can say, hey, here's what's happening. And people can go, okay, this is only going to make you stronger. Like, how are you learning? How are you growing? Right? Because as you went through a lot of challenges this year, we've had three of the most challenging years of our life, a series of crazy events. But even through the process, it's been beautiful to be like, oh my gosh, like I can see, I've written this so many times. And even last week in my Bible study, I'm like, this right now, what I'm going through and I'm growing through is my testimony. Like, this is going to be a huge piece of the puzzle in the future of what God got us through, because literally it could not have been anyone else but God. Like, there's just like
Yes.
no way. That's been really cool. My husband and I to talk a lot about that, of like, you know what? Like just the beauty of this storm and the power of how it's going to impact, motivate, inspire other people to lean in, and know that like you can't do it alone. And like there's no way I could have done this alone. Like I've been carried through this storm, and it's been a really beautiful thing to see even in the midst of it.
Totally. Oh, it's so great to have that type of perspective, and I think as you become more of that leader in your own life and just anchor that perspective, you start to attract more people too, and so you can have those really positive affirmations coming in. Oh yeah, this is the lesson, this is where you're growing, and just like shift out of it. One thing I want to ask you, so for a lot of the people that are like listening, they might be interested in starting their own community in new ways, right? There's a lot of like new ones getting started. What are some of the key things that need to be in place to attract epic people like that, right? How do you connect and bring them into something new? Can you share like what you've done in the past and what's worked for you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it all starts with you, right? Like you're a magnet. And so, what level, where are you vibrating? And so, how do we pour into ourselves? I think the best communities, the leaders are constantly finding ways to grow themselves. The leaders have coaches, the leaders are part of larger communities that pour into them. I think that the moment somebody tries to do it on their own and like they're the guru or they're the head person, it's like they don't need the coaching. Like, that's where your demise can come from. So I would say that, for someone starting a group, like one, what are you modeling, right? Where are you at and what are you modeling? Who are you learning from? And are you making sure to stay connected? Because I think there's a lot of power in that, being able to say, hey, here's how I'm being poured into. And I'm just so stoked to be able to pour into you guys. I think being the more you can niche down and being very specific on like, here's who we are and here's who we serve. And I think there's a lot of power in being able to scale when you niche down and you're like the person for the real estate blank, or like you're the person for this and healthcare and helping. And even though you could help everybody, if you find the niche of where you've been and where you've served, you're able to connect deeply with a lot more people if you stay in that space. So I think just really clarity around who you're serving and niching down as specific as possible and be the person for those people, because there are tons of them, right? All over the world in that specific niche. And so when they find you, like, oh my gosh, like this is my person, this is the community that I need and want, right? And they're able to see that. And I think that the last thing I'd say is just really get clear on how you bring value to your people. Creating space for connection is huge, because in the world we live in, people crave and lack human connection, like true human connection, right? And so being able to create a space where people can let their guard down, where they can just be, where they can be vulnerable, and creating a psychological safety when you have them there. And whether it's you as the leader being a little vulnerable at first and sharing what you're growing through, what's happening, or lessons from the past, and here's what helped me, and giving permission and a space for people to open up and share what they've been through and how they are the way they are today. And there's this unity that comes amongst people in groups when they're able to be vulnerable and share. And that's like sticky glue for your members and for you with them. So those are the first things that come to mind.
Oh, that is so good. So, so good. And there's something that you shared that I want to go deeper in, which is the value piece. Because I think community, especially high level communities, there is a certain intrinsic value, and then there's the perceived value and all of this type of stuff. And I'm curious to talk, I'm just always the women that are listening to this show, I know that you guys have already done so much. So I'm trying to pull out these gold nuggets from Cathy. And I'm just curious, like, how do you scale and how do you figure out value and how do you share that with the other people? And if you want to dive a little bit into that, because you said a little sentence and I'm like, there's a whole piece of gold right there when it comes to that community building and really being of service. If you're loving this conversation and it's sparking something inside of you, maybe it's time to share your own voice with the world. That's exactly why we created the Podcast Accelerator, to help leaders like you go from hidden to heard with a podcast that connects, inspires, and actually grows your business. We launched together in just a few months, and you'll have the system, support, and strategy to keep scaling and growing. Doors are open now, so the link to apply is in the show notes. We cannot wait to see you in there.
For sure. I think that once you've really sat down and figured out, okay, who is my perfect avatar? Again, the more specific we can get, it's like, what does that person need? Like, what am I solving for them? And then how can I bring in speakers, leaders, or what books can I bring in? What topics can we have conversations around that are in alignment with what it is that my people need? Right. And so it's being really aware, and it's being intentional. I see a lot of business owners or people I've coached and worked with that started communities, and they had their agenda, like, here's what I want to teach, here's what I want to do, here's this. And I'm like, well, are you sure that's what your people need or want, right? Is this just like what you want to teach, which is okay. And also, can we also find out, and through their voice, like, create space for them to be heard and really think about what are the things that are going to serve them most. And there's beautiful ways to orchestrate. We have amazing like workshops or retreats we'll do with clients, and I encourage people to do this with their own people, to do this with their communities, to just with their teams, where they can co-create and talk about a year from now, like, what does it look like for your life to be at blank level, or for this to be at here, or for your relationship with God to be a 10, or what does that look like? What would it take to get there? And how can this community support those things? And being able to have conversations where they're talking about the things that would serve them most. And so now you're getting like real-time data to know, okay, these are things I need to be incorporating in our monthly calls or our retreats or whatever we're doing, because this is what the people want, right? And so making sure that we're integrating that. And so I think that it would be, as a leader, letting ego out of the way, or switching the lens to being the best curator of experiences and connection, and being able to be a great guide for your people, not the guru necessarily, but a great guide, and helping them get what it is that they need, whether it's through other friends you have, people you're bringing in, but being able to let ego step out of the way and allow the community to really create together.
Wow, what an amazing answer that was. I'm like, that's worth millions of dollars right there. If you can switch that ego and switch that identity, and at different stages of business, I feel like there's new identities that we get to put on, right? And especially as a woman of faith, there's like our core identities of like, I am a child of God, and these things that are irremovable, and I think can create such grounding and no matter what happens. But as you go through these stages of leadership and development and the people that you're serving and reaching, you need to put on these different hats. And I just love that there can be this change of, not just it's not just about you sharing your voice. It's actually about you creating, curating the spaces, the platforms, the conversations to happen for others to share their voice and to be heard. And gosh, that's just, I love that perspective on it. Did you feel like at any point, did you have a big aha where you realized, wait, this is what they need? I'm curious if there's a good story you have around like stepping into this level of leadership or a time where you maybe weren't operating in that. And then,
Mhm. 100%. Thank you for asking that question because I was like, "Wait, was there?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, actually." I remember 2012. So I started my business in like my actual office and having a staff and people in 2003. And in 2012, we had just come off one of our best years and we were crushing it. And all of a sudden, like everyone, their energies were awful. Nobody wanted to like work there. The energy felt really off. And when I spoke to people, they're like, well, it just feels like we don't even matter. It feels like it doesn't matter what we say. Like basically, there was no empowerment. And I realized, like, holy crap, I'm telling them what to do all the time. And so this was just with my staff where I realized people need to feel heard. People need to feel connected. Need to feel like they're contributing. And we need to give them space to do so. And so before I was running my business like a dictator. And I'm like, here's what we're doing, here's what's this, here's what's that, right? Like, and it was always like that. But that only went so far. And then we got to a level where we were like kind of capped out. And my people were just like feeling like, they'd been with me for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And it's like they didn't have a place to grow, or they didn't feel like they were growing, or they didn't have a place where they felt they could really contribute. They were just like going doing their tasks like robots, right? And so one of my coaches was like, hey, well, first, two things. He's like, why don't you do a love languages test to just understand their love language and how they feel loved and appreciated, which was huge. And then two, why don't you have a session with your people to talk about, and he called, there was an exercise called stop start continue. And it's like, hey, like, and with love, and you have to set the container and everything, but it was kind of like, what I'd love to see you stop doing, start doing, and please continue this because I love this about you, or whatever, right? And whoo, that was like, and I'm like, I'm gonna go first and you guys go, right? But it was seeing, they're like, I don't feel like my voice matters, I don't feel like this, I don't feel like you care. And I was blown away. And I realized I started shifting my meetings. And this is more work related, but if we're talking about the females wearing different hats, it's like the more you incorporate your people, it's a win-win. Because one, you have people that want to help, want to support, want to get your butt out of there. They're like, go deal with your 3 little kids. Like, let me do my job. Like, I got this, cat. Right. And like, you have people who want you out of the way to show you what they're capable of because they're trained, they're empowered, the right way. And I mean, I don't know that you've in the past 10 years, if you listen to any of my staff meetings or I'm working with my team, I don't know that you'll hear me. It's so funny hearing the first decade of running a business and the next decade, like giving directives of like, guys, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to like, when I come to meetings, it's like celebrating all the good they did. And then it's like, all right, what went well last week, they share what could have gone better. And it's like, all right, let's talk about this stuff. What do you guys feel can make this better? And they start talking and sharing ideas where I could have told them most of the time, 8 or 9 out of the 10 things they said were things I was going to tell them. Because by the way, there are always gems that come up. There are always phenomenal ideas that your team will come up with. And I'm like, heck yeah, I love that. And it's like, how can we create growth in this area? Or how can we create more touches here for the business? Or retention is awful, or whatever it is, right? Lead to payment ratio is super off. What do you guys think? And they're like, oh, we should do this, we should do this, we should do that. Well, here's the beautiful part of that is when they come up with the answers versus you telling them what to do, they take ownership at a whole different level and they're stoked to do it. They're not like, oh, Cathy's telling me to do this. They're like, this is my idea and like I'm going to lead this project. And like they show up with a totally different energy, and the work they put in is so much better because they're not just going through the motions, and they feel valued, their thoughts are valued, they feel respected, they feel they're contributing. And it was just because you positioned it differently. And I feel like there was a time as a female where I felt like I had to have all the answers. I had to be the one to solve everything. I had to be the one, or it diminished my authority. if that makes sense, right? It was like, oh, if I don't have all the things, well then like why am I in this role, right? And what I learned later is that great leaders, like I mentioned earlier, are great guides and they develop more leaders. They're not just bossing people around. And I remember, I think it was that year or right around there, I went to a workshop that John Maxwell's team was running on 5 levels of leadership, his book. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, totally. And I could see how with certain people, I was not a very high leader. And so it really shifted a lot of things for me to really be like, all right, how am I leading people? And am I helping them? How am I helping them become a level 4 or level 5 leader? Right. And that became a shift
Mm.
for myself, which made my business so much more fun, but it also allowed a lot more freedom and a lot more space because I had people that were like chomping on the bit to be in charge of this or do that. And I didn't feel like I was forcing anyone. And I've had clients ask me before, like, when I leave, I feel like everything just falls to the crapper. I feel like I can't step away because like it's just not, they're not going to perform the same way. I'm like, well, then I said, unfortunately, that's a leadership problem on your end. And we're not, I said, and by the way, it's an easy fix. And culturally, it also might be getting rid of some people and bringing in new if they can't adapt. But it's apologizing for how you've led, it's making shifts for how there's inclusion in ideas, in business growth, in everything, and them feeling like they're actually a part of something. Because when you do that, it allows space to do all the things, right? You mentioned I do a lot of things. Yes, I'm still division manager for Cutco. I'm the co-founder of GoBundance. I have a consulting company. I do real estate investing. I have different clients that I work with in different industries, whether it's helping them scale businesses, remove themselves, or they really just need help with culture and leadership and teams. And that's something that I'm super passionate about because you can destroy an entire business with bad culture. And I almost lost a lot in 2012 when everything I was like, oh my gosh, and it was that fix of going, okay, like what's important and getting really focused in on what kind of a leader I was being, making sure I had systems my people could follow, but including them in the creation of those processes, alignment where we all were focused on certain objectives and goals and everyone knew what we were working on and everyone took ownership of things, and that empowerment of our people to feel good of like, hey, what do you think, John, that we should do with this? Or what do you think would be something cool to help create more eyes on this or for marketing? And I'm like, I'd love to see your ideas. And oh, really? Well, I think we should maybe try this because if we do a video like this, it could be better than my old boring stuff. I'm like, great. I'm like, can you own that? I said, I'd love to see some things that you put together. And he's like, heck yeah, super pumped. And so it really does help shift things when you do that. And not to say that once you know this, by the way, you're perfect. Because I caught myself actually, I think it was last month. I was so tired and I was just like, I just need to get here, tell them what to do and get out. I don't even know what happened. Like it was a crazy night with the kids. This was happening. I got on my 8 a.m. staff meeting with my team and I was just like, all right, guys, I just do this. Like, I can't even think, and afterwards, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, that's a great way to make people really disengaged. Right. And I had to reach out and apologize. I was like, I'm sorry. I just did not have the container for myself. I did not have my time this morning. I said, and I was a train wreck. I'm like, I'm a human and I just screwed up and I apologize because that is not what a meeting should look like. And never do I want that to be the proper example of running a great meeting because, again, your people watch you and they emulate. And these are other business owners that I work with and coach, and they have their own, franchises and their own companies. And if they're doing that with their people, oh, they're going to lose all their people real quick. Like it was a horrible example. I said, what you just saw was a not to do. So let's just put that in that compartment. What you what you saw Kat do yesterday, don't do that. That was horrible. And I apologize. We taught and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, yeah, it was kind of weird. And we didn't really feel like, why were we even here? You could have sent that out in an email, right? And I was like, I know, it was awful. So I
Yeah.
think too, it's okay to take ownership when we screw up.
Mhm.
That's okay too.
Oh, I love that so much. I mean, yeah, because we as leaders, you're leading at all times during your good times, during your bad times, during your on times, during your off times. So you want to just be aware. And I think those first things that we talked about in the beginning around what environment do you put yourself in? And a lot of that was just you sharing around the reflections that we need. And whether that's in with mentors or at events, or just like with you and God, like having that time to reflect and like asked to be convicted, right? Like, tell me what I haven't done, what I need to go through and be apologizing on. And so that way I can just move forward, with that clean clear slate. And I mean, that's true. It's just, you're such an amazing example of feminine leadership. And this is why I was so excited to have you on this show. So thank you for sharing. We're going to make sure that we post all of your links, everything for people to find you down below in the show notes. I know they're going to want to reach out. Thank you so much just for spending this time this afternoon and pouring into this show and this community. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and Ray, if I could share one last thing, this has been on my heart
Please.
recently, is I want to really challenge all the women, kind of a watch out for like how I messed up. As you could continue seeing and achieving more success, I feel like it's really easy to forget. And for me, I wasn't leaning in as much, meditating, listening. Okay, God, what's next? Like there's times where my business starts going really, really, really well and things are going awesome. And I spend less and less time with God. And then it's like all of a sudden he has to like smack me in the face to wake me up and be like, hey. And I think that a lie that I heard the enemy telling me, this came up for me really heavy like 2 weeks ago. And I told my husband, I said, there's a lie that I've been like so believing to be so true and so pure. And that being that God gave me these gifts and talents and abilities, and God gave me this brain and to make decisions and to be able to filter through things. And so, of course, I'm always leaning on him because he gave me these. But in reality, like I wasn't praying on things. I was just like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm gonna do it. And it was all on my own accord. But it's like the enemy disguised it because I'm like, oh, like God gave me an ability to think for myself or made me smart or gave me these abilities and so it was still like glory to him,
Sneaky.
but not really. It was so disguised. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize like how I've done this so many times. And I stopped like sitting down and like, all right, God, what's it, because I'm like, I feel like I've got it. I've got it right now. And then he has to remind me I don't got it. And that's usually not a fun thing when those seasons have happened. And so I just want to challenge like, as you continue to grow in the business, wherever you're at in your business, to just always remember to lean in, right? Because everything that we're doing, opportunities have been given to us. We've been blessed with connections, human beings, whatever it is that we're creating in this 3D world. For those who are of faith, which I'm assuming if you're listening to this podcast, you are, the most important thing is we're also, as we use whatever resources, talents, things that we have here, is that we're also building the kingdom. And we're also remembering that the most important things are in the next life, And so what are we doing now to be a great example? What are we doing to lean in, to make sure we're not ignoring the thing that matters most, which is our relationship, with our creator, and that people can see that and they can feel it. And that means not skipping church when you're tired, because that shows a bad example to your kids. Or when I'm overwhelmed and feel like I need to work through the night tonight because I'm leaving tomorrow on a 5 a.m. flight, I'm not going to skip my women's Bible study tonight, even though I'm like, oh, whatever, it's okay. It's like, no, like that is priority. That's more important. And I need to make sure that I'm nourishing my relationship with God and that I'm in that community and that environment that keeps me in check, because this is the most important thing, not the extra work or the extra contract. And if I'm focused on the right things, God is always going to provide more than enough, right? There's so much abundance there. And I think that that's been a really huge reminder for me in this season that I just wanted to share. So thank you.
Yes. Yes. Amen. Amen to that. Thank you for closing us off with that piece. It's so powerful. And yeah, shifting and holding that perspective at all times, putting whatever you need in your schedule and your time to commit, have your people there to hold yourself accountable. And that's why you create amazing community too. So definitely, if you're listening, go check out everything that Cathy's doing. Go see the links, go check out GoBundance Women, amazing stuff. So thank you so much for being on here, and we'll see y'all soon. Bye.
Your voice carries weight, not just for today, but for eternity. If this episode stirred something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, speak it, let it ripple. If you're ready to launch a platform that amplifies your message and multiplies your impact, I'm here to help. Start your journey with the link in the show notes down below. Subscribe, leave a review, and remember, when you speak with fire, you don't just shake the earth, you echo in heaven.